What's up guys, I'm BTC, welcome back to the Respawn where I answer your questions. Today we're talking about new map types, attacking through walls, and more. First question of the day, do you think a car ability that lets you and a teammate go faster and function like a movement speed? Yes and no. I don't think you're going to be able to materialize a car out of nowhere anytime soon, and I'm not really sure if Blizzard would ever add an ability where you can grab a teammate and then move them around with you, but certainly there will be other movement type speed buffs. For my hero concept Isaac, he does have something called Second Wind, which gives you CC immunity and it also boosts the movement speed of whoever you use it on. But there is another thing, and this is from Dota. There's a character called Lifestealer. His ultimate is Infest, and you go inside one of your teammates, but you can't move, you can't do any damage or nothing. You're just kind of like there for the ride. And if you have a teammate with very high movement speed or a teleport or whatever, then you can kind of hitch a ride with them to move to that location, and then you leap out and you deal a lot of damage in the area. So something like that, yeah, I certainly could see that, but it would have to be based on you choosing to do it as opposed to the other person kind of grabbing you and pulling you along for the ride. Next question, if Blizzard adds a campaign mode to the game, what do you think the story would be about? Would they have different chapters for each hero? Alright, so this is a question that I had a bunch of people asking about, and from Blizzard's perspective, I think they might want to do something like this, but it's not on their high priority list, because they're more focused on esports and the Overwatch League, and just balancing the game itself. However, if they do something like this, it's probably going to either be paid DLC or some kind of expansion pack or something like that. I'm thinking more along the lines of what we've had with the old Warcraft games and the StarCraft, where they would have the base game and then you would get the expansion pack that kind of tells more of the story. Now, there's a couple of different ways that they could handle this. Either it could just be a purely single-player campaign, or it could be more like Payday, where in Payday, if you've never played it, basically you have all these different missions, and when you put them all together, they kind of tell a big overarching story, but you play them with other players online, and it's in groups of 4. And you can go in whatever order you want, so they might do something like that. Imagine being able to play all the different archive events in a massive overarching story, and you play them in whatever order you want, and if there are certain ones that you like better than others, you can play those repeatedly, and maybe there's some sort of power-ups and all kinds of extra bonuses for beating it in a certain amount of time and all that kinds of things. So they could do it like that and kind of maintain the multiplayer aspect of it, or they could just have the pure single-player campaign. But I think the single-player campaign would be a little more difficult to do. I think the multiplayer one would probably be a better method of handling that kind of stuff. And then you just, again, you just have whatever. As for what kind of stories it could be, I'm not really sure what exactly it would be, but it would almost certainly take place in the early days where you start up with the Overwatch beginning and all the stuff that goes through it and the different missions that they go on up until the present day. And I think that's pretty much the entire timeline that you would have all the different Overwatch missions, and then maybe they could have another expansion or another DLC or whatever it happens to be, and you go from the other side and you take all of the Talon characters and you do all of those and you go through all their missions and all that sort of stuff. So there's a bunch of different things that they could do. Do you think Echo will be Hero 31? I'm not sure. The Overwatch devs have said that Echo is a very important character in the Overwatch universe and that they need to build the character up a lot more. So maybe not Hero 31, maybe Hero 32. It all depends on what we get for this year's archives, because in a previous video I talked about how the next archives could be the kidnapping of Widowmaker, or it could possibly be something to do with Baptiste. But now that I'm thinking about it, it might have something to do with Echo, and they might start to build up her story, because she was in Overwatch back before it all got shut down. So in the McCree animation, he went and found her and reactivated her, because he said that they needed her back and all that sort of stuff. So I think they're going to probably tell some of the story of Echo in one of the archives, or at least some of the animations and stuff, and then they're going to introduce the character. Now, if they do the archive about Echo, then they could add her in the June-July area with the next character, sure, but I don't know. They might want to build the character up a little bit more first. Do you think they should just scrap Res entirely and give Mercy another ability? Yes. And I've talked about it in previous videos, including an entire video that talked about a brand new concept called Miracle Worker. Are you ever going to make a kind of tier list for the heroes? Nah, I don't know, maybe. I mean, if it's something that people want... The problem with it is that there's a different tier list. For the pros, there's a tier list. For Master and GM, there's a tier list. And then for maybe Plat and Diamond, there might be a different one. And then for Gold and below, there's a different one. So there's not just one tier list. It depends on what skill level you're at, is which characters are going to be the best and most viable. What heroes do you think are going to have a skin at the Archive event? I've already done my prediction video, and I just have to release it probably, I don't know, maybe next week or so. But I've already done all my predictions, so I don't want to give anything away now. But I think this one's going to have some interesting ones, but again, you'll have to wait and see. Can you block Immortality Field with a Winston bubble? No. I did a video doing all of the different myth-busting, the interactions for Batiste and all of his abilities. Barriers of any kind, whether it's a Reinhardt, Orisa, Symmetra, Winston, whatever, they do not block the Immortality Field. If you want to block it, you need to use something that prevents line of sight, like Mei's Ice Wall. Do you still stream on Twitch? I would like to, I just haven't had time. So when I find more time, I'll be able to start streaming again. I would like to stream at least 3 or 4 days a week, but again, I just need to find the time. Would you personally like a vertical capture point map? I would just like more variety in the maps in general, although there is a problem with a vertical style map, and that would be that any character with mobility, like Diva or Winston, would become way, way more powerful than any of the other characters that don't have that sort of mobility. So there is a problem with it. I mean, a perfect example is the first point in Numbani. If a character has any kind of vertical mobility, then they have a significant advantage because you can just go up and down between the capture point area and then those top areas. So vertical maps are going to be super, super difficult to balance in Overwatch because of that. I've been making Overwatch concepts as more of a hobby. They all go into... However, I can't seem to do tank concepts. Any advice for making tanks? Well, next week I am making a video that is going to go through all of the process of how to build a character, and I'm going to go through the things that you need to take into consideration when you're trying to balance the damage versus the abilities, how the abilities should be constructed, and all that sort of stuff. So stay tuned for that, hopefully next week. Can you tease your next hero concept? I usually put out the teasers like a day before. I have so many hero concepts and they're so awesome, and I just want to release all of them at once, but unfortunately it takes a little while, so you're gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to wait just a little bit. My next hero concept probably isn't gonna come out until maybe 2 weeks from now, but I've got some extra stuff to go along with it. Why is the max height barrier different for each map? Just because of the way the maps are designed, you have to have that barrier a certain distance above the max high ground, because that Pharah always needs to be above that. Or even other characters like Hammond or Diva, they need to be able to get high enough into the air to land onto that high ground, so there just has to be that, and it's gonna change in every map. When do you think the patch on the PTR is coming to live service? It could land this week, but I'm guessing probably next week. Have you made any voice interactions of your hero concept interacting with the Overwatch characters? No, there's a bunch of things that people have asked, like sprays and skins and emotes and voice lines, and I just don't want to go into all that kind of stuff. I'm more focused on the design, a little bit of the lore, and the main abilities of the character. So some of that extra stuff, I just don't really put any time into it. If Mercy damage boosts an Ana and the Ana hits a teammate, does it heal more? No, it does not. Do you have any predictions on what the next meta could be? Not really, because there are so many changes on the PTR right now, plus the new hero. I think what you're going to see, at least in the higher bracket and the pro scene, is they're still going to run goats for a little bit because that's what they're used to, and then some people are going to be reluctant to change. But it's possible that something new could happen. Now, if you hear anyone else saying, oh, well, the new meta is going to be this, just ignore them. They have no idea what they're talking about. There's way too much stuff going on. I was almost perfectly accurate in all of my recent predictions, and I don't know what it's going to be. And I guarantee you these other guys don't know either. So really, it's just going to take a little bit of time before people start figuring stuff out. I mean, almost nobody saw the GOATS comp for a while, and then all of a sudden it just appeared, and they're like, oh, hey, this is the strongest thing that's ever been in the game, and then they just run it all the time. So this stuff just needs to come from testing and a more kind of organic way of happening. Like, you can't just predict, oh, this is what's going to happen. So really, it could be anything. How would a hero that's able to give a teammate immunity to CC work in Overwatch? It would work exactly like Second Wind from my hero concept, Isaac, which is you just basically buff them. You give them a little bit of CC and movement speed or something else, and that's how it would work. Why triple tank, triple support cuts called GOATs? Well, it's called GOATs because the first team that really had major success with it and kind of made the whole thing popular was called GOAT, and it stands for the greatest of all time. That's where it comes from. Do you think the Havana map will come? Yes, it will, but when? I don't know. It could be the archives, or it could be later on in the summer. That's going to be all the questions for this week. Thank you to everyone who submitted one. If you didn't get picked, you can try again next week. But keep in mind, repeat questions are not going to be answered because I've already put them in previous Respawn videos. So if you keep asking a question and you don't see it pop up, it was probably already answered in a previous video. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller because it's never your fault.